Louder!
Greetings, you're listening to Lights, Camera, and Exploitation. This is Norman Cabrera, special effects makeup for Scarecrows. Scarecrows was the first movie I did when I was still living in Florida before moving to Los Angeles to work in effects out here. This is probably 35 years ago. It's my first movie, and it was really great, fantastic working on this film with no movie experience up to the point that I started working on it. And what can I say? It was a blast. It was my first movie, and it was good times shooting it in the swamps of Florida. The DP went on to do a bunch of movies for Sam Raimi. A lot of people who worked on the film actually went on to have bigger film careers after that. And I'm grateful that this was one that started me off as well. So hope you enjoy the podcast.
And what's up, everybody, and welcome to Lights, Camera, Exploitation, your guide to exploitive cinema. This is the pod boss, TJ Bowser, and joining me as always is your doppelganger, Kangabanger from down under, Mr. Brody Kane.
Howdy, howdy, motherfuckers!
And the second man on the grassy knoll, Mr. Slick Nick.
Yo, y'all.
Today we have a doozy of an episode, but first, it's time for your slice of life. Brody, how goes it?
Like I say every week, Mr. Bowser, it all goes well down in my neck of the woods. Wasted a fair bit of money on that Black Friday sale there the other week.
Ooh.
Yeah, absolutely. So even though I only bought 2 films, which I talked about on our bonus episode, I happened to treat myself to a film called The Last Gasp from Vinegar Syndrome. Now, I'd been contemplating about buying this one for a while now, but as soon as I saw Robert Patrick, the T-1000 in it, I fucking had to have it. The premise of it sounds amazing. And the trailer looks fantastic. So, yeah, definitely bought that one. What did I watch this week? I went to the theaters and saw Dune.
Woo!
Fucking fantastic film from Denis Villeneuve. I mean, that man can do no wrong. Quite the cinematic experience that he brings to the table upon each viewing of his films. Yeah, fantastic fucking film. And that's only part 1, so I'm looking forward to part 2. I can see TJ's busting to say something. You going to say something there, Mr. Bowser?
Yeah, it's fucking great, isn't it? I'm just so happy that we can talk about it now.
So fucking good.
Yeah, absolutely. What else? I would actually just like to thank Norman Cabrera for taking the time to actually get around us lads, and thanks for the fantastic intro for this. We are forever in your debt, mate, and much appreciated.
Absolutely. It's fucking rad to have somebody of his caliber do an intro for us. It's an honor.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, man.
Nick?
But other than that, yeah, Nick, how you been, mate?
Not too bad. Mostly just been really reading at Dune. Been jumping a lot actually into the art and music lately. I've been playing with Aaron, who the listeners might know as the Hidden Fourth Beetle Bro, and also from Death Talk. I've been playing a lot of music, writing some stuff recently. Doing a lot of digital art, been spending a lot of my money on drawing tablet stuff and styluses and whatnot. Been jumping a lot into that. TJ, I'm probably gonna throw something your way here pretty soon, actually, from that. And really, that's about it for now. Gonna check out the new South Park movie, considering there's fucking 13 more about to drop as well, or something that they got approved for. It's something ridiculous. It's literally like 13 or 14 more movies. But gonna watch the post-COVID special tonight. So hopefully that's going to be as funny as I think it will be. Really, that's about it on my end. Just that, and still reading through Dune. TJ, what have you been up to?
Well, so many fucking things, man. Watching a ton of fucking movies recently. We just dropped the Black Friday special where Brody and I spent like 45 minutes talking about all the movies we bought, and that was a fucking doozy. So I'm kind of waiting for those to come in. So Vinegar Syndrome's Partners Only thing launched today, and they have the film Savage Harvest. It's like a shot on video film, but it's like compared to like Evil Dead, it's absolutely like this gnarly splatter movie. So I'm like super hyped for that. And then there's another movie called Assholes, which is like a comedy. It has like prosthetic anuses and stuff in it. So like, I guess it's like pretty absurd. The cover art is just insatiable. You have to check it out. Super cool that Vinegar Syndrome's doing those collaborations. I mean, I picked up quite a few during the Black Friday sale. And if you want to know what those are, go listen to our Black Friday special. Out now! But I pre-ordered MVD's Jack Frost 2 this morning, and then I also picked up Kino Lorber's Career Opportunities and Conquest from Lucio Fulci from Code Red. Excited to get those in the motherfucking mail! But yeah, I watched the Children of Dune TV series recently, and that was fucking rad. If you don't know Mr. Slick Nick, that covers both Messiah and Children of Dune.
Ooh, okay.
Yes, so highly recommend watching that. And if you want to purchase that, I believe Umbrella Entertainment just released 1 and 2 on a duo set on Blu-ray, so that includes both award-winning sci-fi series.
Interesting.
And they're fucking fantastic. James McAvoy in Children of Dune is something to behold. Talking about things to behold, let's talk about this week's film, which is 1988's Scarecrows.
At first, it seemed easy.
Taking the money!
Take the money that dropped from the sky. But they forgot that greed grips the mind like a vice. Turning the simplest dreams to nightmares.
Coming to get you, Bert, you son of a bitch. Now it's personal.
They landed in the field of a scarecrow.
Just some kind of superstitious things that are used to ward off evil spirits. Where's Jack? Fired at this thing. He just kept coming. Bullets don't stop it.
What are you talking about?
Man! Like humans!
Somebody is trying to scare us out of here.
It's a deadly race in which the hunters and the hunted are destined to become victims. Beware of the scarecrow. Kill it or become it. Scarecrows, the stuff nightmares are made of.
And that is from director William Wesley, who also directed Route 666 from 2001. Writers William Wesley, Richard Jeffries, and Larry Stamper. Cinematographer Peter Deming, who also did Evil Dead in 1987, Lost Highway in 1997, Mulholland Drive in 2001, and Twin Peaks in 2017. So clearly Lynch is a fan of him.
Yes.
Music by Terry Plumeri, who also did Body Chemistry in 1990, Night Hunter in 1996, Night Club in 2001, and Cowboy Zombies in 2013. Special effects by J.B. Jones, who did Caddyshack in 1980, Shoot to Kill in 1988, Cape Fear in 1991, and The Crow in 1994. Producers Ted Vernon, William Wesley, and Cammie Winnikoff. Assistant director Barry H. Walden, who would later produce Pearl Harbor in 2001, Kangaroo Jack in 2003, National Treasure Book of Secrets in 2007, and Venom Let There Be Carnage in 2021. Special makeup effects artist Norman Cabrera, the man of the hour, who worked on such films as Harry and the Hendersons in 1987, Planet of the Apes in 2001, Star Trek Beyond in 2016, and most recently, Ghostbusters Afterlife in 2021. Budget, $425,000! Starring Ted Vernon as Corbin, who also starred in Hammerhead Jones in 1986, Silent Hunter in 1995, and Bikini Swamp Girl Massacre in 2014, the great hit that is. Michael David Sims as Curry, who starred in Masterminds in 1997, X2, X-Men United in 2003, and Santa's Sleigh in 2005, with Bill Goldberg. Richard Vidon as Jack, who starred in Hard Rock Zombies in 1985, Terminator 2, Judgment Day in 1991, and Demon Mind in 2017. Christina Sandburn as Roxanne! Victoria Christian as Kelly, who starred in Law & Order in 1991, a TV series. Alan Naomi in 1992, and Buds for Life in 2004. David Campbell as Al. You can call me Al. Who starred in Killer Workout in 1987, Deadly Prey in 1987, and Deadliest Prey in 2013, and that is a sequel. BJ Turner as Bert, who starred in Sam's Son in 1984, Alien Private Eye in 1989, and Night Angel in 1990. Dax Vernon as Dax the dog.
My boy.
I love that we have dogs credited.
I know. We have to keep doing it.
Nick?
After a band of ex-military criminals pulls off a multi-million-dollar heist, they hop aboard a plane headed for Mexico. But when one of their own betrays them, they suddenly find themselves on the ground and on the run through a field of scarecrows near an abandoned farmhouse. As night sets in, the real nightmare begins. The men discover that there's a reason the farmhouse is empty, and now those who thought they were the hunters are being hunted by an unimaginable and malevolent force.
Fucking A. Well done, well said. Awards! Fansporto in 1989. Best Film William Wesley nominee. So it also premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, and they had dudes running around in scarecrow masks to promote it.
I do believe... Did it perform there, or was it going to perform there?
No, it actually played there.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Why are we not talking about that?
I wonder if it was after the bit, because there's another theatrical release bit that I have in the notes as
it was during one of the attempts to release this film, because there's multiple versions that were trying to be shopped, and again, this was like nightmare hell. But we'll get into that. Boys, let's get physical. So we have a release from Shout Factory that was released on June 2nd, 2015, runs 83 minutes, and it features an audio commentary with co-screenwriter Richard Jefferies, director of photography Peter Deming, and composer Terry Plumeri, audio commentary with director William Wesley and producer Cami Winikoff, The Last Straw, an interview with special makeup effects creator Norman Cabrera, Cornfield Commando, an interview with actor Ted Vernon, original storyboard, still gallery, theatrical trailer, and that's Region A Lock. Brody, is there another release of it you have?
Yes, there is. 88 films coming in at Region B. And there is another Region B one down this way called Cult Cinema, I do believe. So, yeah, there's a few versions of it, all unrated, obviously, because no one wants that rated shit. So
we don't have the information for those two releases, but I'm sure that those have some other features. Boys, we have some additional information.
So, after Richard Jefferies finished Blood Tide, the production, which was terrible and almost caused him to entirely quit the film industry, when he got back from set, he was so mad, he wrote another script called The Vagrant. He saw an ad in a local paper asking for screenplays, and he submitted that one. Wesley then called him and told him that his script was by far the best one. They talked about making the film, but Jefferies realized that Wesley had no real way of making it, so he left and ultimately ended up forgetting about it. So Wesley went on to try to make his own film, but wanted to use a monster that was still unique.
So we haven't mentioned in here that the group of mercenaries is called the Crows and wears all black uniforms. And apparently whenever Wesley was trying to develop his concept, and Brody could probably talk more about this, he wanted to think logically of if he was going to pick Scarecrows as the main villain, what would be the enemy of Scarecrows? So the Crows is what he
The Crows. Yeah.
The logical choice. It's just something that we wanted to mention in here because it's rad. But Brody, next bit.
But the screenplay had a temporary name of Old MacDonald's Farm and Evil Storks. They shopped it around but had no luck, and he moved to Florida.
So one day, Wesley was at a car lot owned by Ted Vernon, and he asked him what he did. And Wesley basically just said, I make movies, and I'm looking for $150,000 for my next project. Vernon apparently then swung around, opened a safe which was behind him filled with guns and stacks of cash. He then proceeded to offer to fund the film as long as he could get a role, and so could his beloved dog, Dax. Wesley then proceeded to call back Jefferies.
So this guy's moving to Florida, then meets Ted Vernon, who then gives him money, but only if he can include him in the Scarecrow movie and his dog. Then he calls the guy back, but it gets better.
So, to elaborate on that a little bit more, Jefferies was confused at first, thinking he was talking about The Vagrant, but he was actually talking about Scarecrows. Jefferies agreed, but drew up his own contract. He would directly speak with the director and then write a few pages more. He would get to a certain point, then stop. Then Wesley would hand deliver him cash, and then he would write a little bit more until the film was finished.
I love that. Because he refused to take any other payment. He had to be there in person and give him cash money.
If I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna get my money.
God, I love it.
I also want to mention that The Vagrant did eventually get made, and I guess it's not that good. So.
So, on one of these trips, while Wesley was in Florida looking for someone to do the effects, he ended up stopping at a comic book store called Sunshine Comics. Ended up asking the clerk if he knew anyone that did makeup, to which the clerk suggested a regular at the store, one Mr. Norman Cabrera. Wesley was shocked to find out that he was only an 18-year-old kid, but did change his mind and end up hiring him after he ended up seeing some of his work.
Yeah, that guy lived his life very much like Rick Baker did and just kind of sunk it completely into monster making, and it paid off.
And so I did, this is part of it as well. I'll just do this one really quick just because I did actually find mention in this so Brian Albright, film reviewer, does just this big book that I've actually seen before. I've read some of it. It's actually really, really good if you're ever looking for just some cult classics. This. Yeah, Brian Albright has this book called Regional Horror Films from 1958 to 1990, and due to this being shot in Florida, ends up referring to it as one of the last great Florida horror films.
Ah, okay.
And so the only other parts that I could find that were actually not filmed in Davies was the exterior shots of the plane taking off and landing, which were actually filmed 6 weeks later in Mexico, which, DJ, as you pointed out, is why it's very obviously taken during the daytime, even though it's the middle of the night throughout the movie.
We need some insert shots here.
Oh, yeah. It's a shame we're not a visual medium sometimes.
So during the production of the film, Wesley got crazy sick on set from all the mosquitoes and had symptoms of malaria. In between takes, he would walk off set and puke to the side.
Jesus. Didn't he? He ended up going to the hospital too.
Yep, and they had to call in locals to spray the area for mosquitoes because it was starting to become a real problem.
Yeah.
And it still didn't take care of the problem completely. So
nope, it's a Florida swamp, man.
Yep.
So all of the guns in the film, actually, speaking of topical, were made of balsa wood and painted black. So they'd hired a guy. They were able to get together enough money to hire a guy to come on for one day so they could film all the scenes where they fire guns, because he actually was able to bring in prop guns that actually fired. But they only had him for one day.
Yes. This is the 80s, you know, when CGI didn't exist. Okay, that's enough commentary. Brody?
So in an interview with Scream Factory, actor and producer Ted Vernon talks about the film itself. Scarecrows came about because Bill Wesley and I talked. He was my photographer for the Auto Trader. He had this script and I said, okay, let's make this movie. I was an executive producer. I got that credit and I was a star of the film. And my dog Dax was also a star in the film, to which I miss him a lot. I would have to say that filming that film was an interesting experience for me in my life. So I ran my car business, ran it all day, and then worked all night for whatever time for the 4 weeks that we did this. So I worked all day, all night, and got about 2 hours sleep a night. It was interesting, but I loved it.
Good mind. So, Vernon also continues to talk about acting in the film. Physicality is me. Wait, what?
That's correct. Physicality is me. He's basically describing himself.
So Vernon goes on to talk about acting in the film. Physicality is me. It wasn't a challenge because it's what I do. I'm always cast as the tough guy because I am. It wasn't much of a challenge. It was fun. It was exciting. And, you know, with acting, you really play yourself, but you're changing it a little bit. Corbin is a rough guy with a heart. He's kind of the muscle in the movie, but with a heart to then sacrifice himself to save the girl.
Yeah, sure.
Pretty much.
I really liked how, like, at the start of it, they went from, oh, he's going to go psycho off on his own, to he's the one sacrificing himself to save the girl at the end.
Yeah.
Now, this is fucking interesting. Working with William Wesley, the director, was an interesting experience because he's really a bright guy and he knows what he wants from people. You know, he lucky I didn't wring his freaking neck. We came that close a couple of times and I said, pack it up. I don't need this shit. I'll write off the money. I had a couple of meetings with him like that, but he got the movie done. He's done other films since. So, yeah, God bless him.
Yeah, I think part of that was because he was inexperienced as an actor. Wesley made sure he didn't have that many lines, and he got really upset that he didn't have enough lines.
And Wesley really was a first-time director too, so
yeah.
Wesley actually said to him, he's like, "You're more the strong, silent type," which I think that's what really pissed him off.
Yeah, I can see that. His first role, and he's being typecasted already. So he goes on to talk about the film's reputation. He says, I'm still proud that I did the movie. I starred in a horror film that's still remembered from the 80s, and it's great stuff. I have people contacting me all the time, and I'm getting work all around the world because of that movie. Scarecrows was the first film that I starred in, and it's a film that's remembered as a cult favorite, so I'm honored by that.
And we also have him talking about working with Mr. Norman Cabrera himself. So working with Norman was great. He was just out of high school and he came in and worked those wonderful Scarecrows. The kid's a genius. He's not a kid anymore, but then he was, and it was great working with him.
So Norman himself, in an interview with Scream Factory, I believe it's the one from the release, talking about the film itself, he says it was very much like a student film kind of vibe to which we were all learning. There were no quote unquote professionals on the film. It was very much a grassroots guerrilla filmmaking thing. Scarecrows was my very first movie. I had no real professional experience when I did the film. I was 18 years old. We were all kids. It was almost like doing a Super 8 movie with a budget because it was all college kids or younger. A lot of the guys on the crew were 19, and I think the director, William, was the oldest on the set, and he was 30. Yeah.
So Cabrera talks about creating these fucking wonderful looking scarecrows. When the time came to create the scarecrow creatures, we had already talked about it like crazy. I was already doing sketches and all that stuff, but finally we got enough money to actually start the production, and then I was able to start doing some clay designs, sculpting some heads, trying out different ideas of how the masks were going to be made. It was like, were they all going to be burlap or were they partially reviewed flesh? But one of the cool ideas was that when you first see them, they are mainly covered in burlap. So the idea was throughout the progression of the film, once they get shot, pieces of burlap ripping away, you're seeing more of what's underneath, and it turns out to be this Fowler family. Basically, these satanic farmers or whatever they are.
Demonic demons.
That was the best.
But the other scarecrows that are on the farm are the people that they have turned into scarecrows, which I think is a very cool and ambitious idea for pretty much a no-budget film.
This is really cool. So Cabrera goes on to talk about the locations. He says the locations were very challenging. We shot in Davie, Florida. It's right near the Everglades. In fact, it's right on the border of this place called Alligator Alley. It was a swamp. I mean, we were literally filming in a swamp, and it was just crawling with mosquitoes, like we mentioned earlier. People were getting sick from getting bitten by the mosquitoes, and we were shooting all night. Then they found this really cool abandoned farmhouse, which was straight out of Evil Dead, and it was a real place. That's the vibe he wanted. Something dilapidated, a shack kind of thing, and they found this 2-level little whitewashed shack that was completely falling apart and really not safe at all. It was going to be torn down, but they brought some guys in and reinforced the beams of the place so that we could shoot inside.
It apparently only cost them around $250 a month to shoot in it, but like previously mentioned, in order to shoot in it, they had to do all that work first, and I believe by the time that they actually got to the point where they were able to start filming, the budget was gone. Which caused Cammy Winkenhoff, what the hell's her name?
Winikoff.
Cammy Winikoff to have to go back out and find more money for the production. So yeah, that's always fun.
Looking about it, even after inflation, it's not that much. It's about $625.
So the Cabrera talks about working with the gore throughout the film. Bill initially wanted a bloodier version so that when we screened it for the ratings board, he'd be like, okay, you have to cut this out, but then he would still have to have something to work with. So we would do a drier pass with blood gushing and then do a wetter pass, like a really gory pass. So while we were shooting, we would do both. There was one shot in particular when they put a bag over a guy's head and they stab him in the face. It was just a rubber head that I had made. Take one was just a tiny little gush of blood, and Bill was like, what the fuck was that? Actually, what was that? I want to see blood. And I had a fire extinguisher that I pump up blood through, and I was like, if you want blood, I'll give you blood. So I gave this thing a few extra pumps, and here comes take two. So they pull the bag over this guy's head, bring the knife down, and it was a ridiculous amount of blood. Bill was like, that's perfect. And I was like, oh, come on, that much blood wouldn't come out of a guy's face. However, that's the one they ended up using for the unrated version. And in the context of a horror film, it works.
That scene is so fucking intense.
I love it.
Yes.
It's going to get brought back up later. Yep.
You don't realize what's going on in the scene. Like, oh my God, they're converting him. They only show you snippets. And then like, fuck. Yeah.
Then just bam.
It's kind of like in Hellraiser 2 when you see a Cenobite being created. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
But this is just a much more,
But there is meaning behind that scene, and that dictates into the photo of the Fowler family, which I will elaborate on in our notes.
So, in an interview with 88 Films, who did the Region B release Brody mentioned earlier, producer Kami Winikoff talks about jumping on the film. She says, so how I got into the film was when I was very young. I was going to run my father's business. So I always grew up thinking I was going to run a business. And then when I was in my third year of school, he sold it. So I was sitting in Atlanta thinking of what the hell am I going to do with my life? And what led to the decision was that when I was younger, I always studied the neighborhood playhouse on the weekends just for fun. It was something that I did go into the city to be close to my dad while he was working, and I loved it. So then I thought, well, okay, I'm going to try to get onto Miami Vice, which was the hottest show ever in the 80s.
Don Johnson!
So I kept bothering this transpo guy, telling him over and over that I would job. He was like, stop bothering me. There's this guy, Bill Wesley, making this movie. Go see if he needs somebody. So he gave me his number. I called him. He was sitting alone in this apartment saying he's making this movie. At the time, it was called Old MacDonald Had a Farm. I signed on, and he hired me as a PA. The only person who was on before me was Norman Cabrera, and the three of us just started.
You know, part of me feels like if they went with the title Death Stalk, it would stand out much more now in today's like world that is just flooded with Scarecrow films. But then again, this film can probably be attributed to that said flooding of Scarecrow films. I'm just saying it'd probably be easier to find. I do like that whole Death Stalks thing because it also plays with like the corn aesthetic. Stalks. I don't know.
Stalk of corn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd call it Corn Stalkers.
I think that's a different movie.
Go on, Nick, elaborate a little bit on it. Go on.
It's like Deliverance meets Children of the Corn, and that's as far as I'll go.
Yep, you could pitch that to me. I'd give you money for it.
I got
so Winikoff.
$20.
Where are we?
So we have Winikoff. Talking about the film's budget.
There we go.
The budget of the film. So the movie was originally budgeted at $150,000 dues, and it wound up costing $400,000 dues. So we ended up bringing in new investors. We were all very young, and we didn't really know what we were doing at the time. I guess we were very lucky. We had a lot of people on the film that had talent, and so we were able to really negotiate great deals for the money.
So, Winikoff goes on to tell the story of production designer Gary Roberts. She says, so there's a great story about Gary Roberts. We had a shot and Peter was ripping his hair out because there was a light in the shot and we couldn't figure out how we were going to get this light out of the shot. I really don't know if I should be saying this on camera, but Gary went out with his pistol, shot the light out, turns around and goes, okay, roll sound.
Fucking cowboy, I like it. So Winikoff talks about the wrong flight home. So we finished the film, we were completely exhausted, and I had booked a flight home through Ted Vernon's agent. I had said that I wanted to go non-stop. I don't care about anything else, just get me back to LA. So the agent had written the times of the flight on the outside of the envelope and gave me the tickets, to which I was just so tired that I didn't even look at the tickets. So we drove down to Miami Airport, and when we got to the ticket counter, the woman said, "You're at the wrong airport." So Wesley's pacing the airport all upset. So we took another flight, which was the Eastern flight out, but we had been booked on the Delta flight. So when we got to the airport in LA, the editor of the film picked us up, and he was white as a ghost. I asked if he was sick or something else, and he said, "You both are pretty much ghosts." Everyone had thought that we went down in the Delta flight out of Fort Lauderdale.
So this probably is where people would be like, this film's cursed. Because if you look at like everything that happened in the production of this, like it was everything that went wrong, could have went wrong, and like everything was against them. This is just a whole nother layer of like, holy fuck, the filmmakers could have died, and just because of sheer luck.
for context for the uninitiated, it was Delta Airlines Flight 191. The flight that they were supposed to be on hit a microburst, and the flight crew decided to go through the storm even though they hadn't been trained for it. They hit the microburst. The plane went down. And it killed most of everybody on board. I think there were about 26 survivors, but the section that they were to be seated in had 0. So, like, they were not going to make it if they had actually made the right flight.
They made a movie on it.
Yeah. It's so weird with stuff like that, like how Seth MacFarlane missed his flight when he was supposed to be on one of the ones that got hijacked during 9/11.
Mark Wahlberg was one of them.
Mm-hmm. Or hell, Toxic Zombies, the director died in 9/11.
Yep.
He was working at the World Trade Center at a brokerage firm at the time.
That's correct.
Fuck.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the film premiere, Nick?
Oh, yeah, sure. So upon release, the film premiered in Des Moines, Iowa for precisely a 1-week run, simply so that the creators could tell video distributors at the time that the film had had a theatrical release to increase the sales.
Hey, yeah. So that kind of plays into the last bit here. So once they finally did tell the video distributors about that theatrical release, they then were picked up. But shortly after they were picked up, the film company that picked them up went bankrupt. It was then shelved for 3 years before being released in 1988 on VHS, and it was heavily marketed with Norman's name credited for effects because by then he already did Fright Night 2 and Harry and the Hendersons and stuff like that. It ended up making over $3 million from home media sales, though, and they offered both a rated and unrated version of the film. So it might not at first been the hit or the cult success, but once that baby saw VHS, she took off.
It got there, man.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, it did.
So, boys, let's talk about it! Okay, favorite performance of the film. Brody, it's your pick. Take it away.
Ooh, right. So I'm going to kick it off with Michael David Sims' Curry. I think he's great in this film, and he really does truly showcase this leadership role of the group every time he hits the screen. And, you know, even though he talks a lot of shit and these corny one-liners, but he will do anything to help out his crew in the firing line of death, I find. So it's just a shame that he ended up being too gullible in the end. But overall, I think Michael made it his character and portrayed Curry pretty good for the film. Out of all of them, he copped it sweet the most when you think about it. They really fucking toyed with him to the point where he mentally broke, and then they fucking, kill him.
I mean, he got to the point where he thought they were already dead in it.
Yeah, and what more can I say about Mr. Sims that, you know, every time he graces the screen with his presence, you just can't take your eyes off him. I think he's fantastic. Bet you, Slick Nick.
I am actually going to have to go with one Mr. Richard Vadan as Jack. I really liked his portrayal. He was the perfect amount of comedic relief throughout it. Like, it was just every time he said anything, I was cracking up. And it was great because, I mean, you have it to kind of juxtapose Michael's like absolute breakdown over the course of the film, which I mean in and of itself is great. He's right. It's probably on par. It's probably equal. I'm just going to have to go with Vadan's because I really like the comic relief for all of it. The going after his harmonica and like that's all he seems to care about. When the plane's going down, he's sitting there with the headphones on. He has no idea like what's going on. I don't know. I felt like it was needed almost. Just that level of comic relief really was, and he did it very well. Like he was also one of the more rational ones. You know, whenever they realized, hey, Bert's been split open like a pig and stuffed with money, everyone else is like, oh, he's messing with us, and he goes, no, this is fucked. We need to leave now. So like, even though he's the comic relief, he's still the smart one. It's kind of like Marty from Cabin in the Woods a little bit. So like, I guess that might go into impact and takeaways a bit, but yeah, I guess that's mine. TJ, what did you think? Who was yours?
So I'm going to go with what both of you guys said, and said what's more interesting is the dynamic that the Jack and Curry characters share and the friendship that plays off on screen, especially once Jack gets killed, and the way that we see the Curry character change after that, because he really starts to panic once Jack dies, and then they start haunting him with his voice. So I think that dynamic's probably the most entertaining, and that performance between the both of them is really cool, because then you see it come full circle when Jack returns as the goggle Scarecrow.
Which is so cool.
Which is very badass.
Cool.
He almost looks like a Cenobite.
He does.
Yeah.
Oh man, the effect for that is so awesome.
yeah, it's pretty fucking rad. But honorable mention has to go to Ted Vernon, just because at the end he really brings his A game, and it's really believable. That whole like action sequence where he's like, okay, I just got fucked up by this scarecrow zombie, but I can't let the plane go down and let him kill this girl. So you really see him really kind of act his ass off in that one sequence and really make it believable. So honorable mention to Ted for that one scene.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so favorite set piece. We have to go with the house.
Absolutely.
There's really only one.
I mean, the fields.
I suppose, yeah. We got the fields, the plane, and the house.
The plane's pretty shit. Yeah. Pretty much just the fields and the house.
No, I mean the plane is it's a metal corridor.
Yeah, there's nothing in it.
Yeah, because it is a cargo plane that they stole out of Camp Pendleton.
Think it'd have equipment in it.
You know what I like about the house? Each room has its own fucking story. You know, like especially when we cut from one room, you know, featuring a photograph of the Fowler family to a room of black
cabin in the woods
magic. Yeah.
Hey, you talked about the picture on the wall. What's the importance of that?
That will lead into my favorite kill. I will talk about that. But obviously that's the Fowler family, the zombies that we see throughout the film. That's
favorite set piece definitely has to go to like the Evil Dead-esque shack that we see to the Fowler family.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's definitely fucking rad as hell. And like knowing that it was dilapidated and they had to fix it up just to shoot in it just makes it even cooler, because it is in fact a shithole, and they probably had to do bare minimum production design because of it. So.
Pretty much.
Oh, yeah.
It's like Cabrera said, they got lucky with the location. Extremely lucky with it. And I would agree. It's a perfect style for the film.
Just
I
works.
can see it. I mean, scouting locations come across that I can just see it. Yes, this. We're going to use this. I can't see how they wouldn't.
Nick?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, house, man.
Yeah, okay.
The house. So that and the graveyard a bit, though. The graveyard is definitely creepy. The area around where this parachute hits.
The choice to use metal crosses instead of wooden, and then even to bring it up in the script.
Yep.
That you have to hang them via barbed wire and you can't just nail them in. That's extra brutal. So just
doesn't Jack talk about that? He's like, you can't put the bolts through your hands. You got to put it through your wrists.
Yeah.
It's like this little bones in your hands. They can't do it. Well, you can't use nails. It's metal. You got to do it. You know, you can't do nails. He's like, well, you still have to do it through the wrist. So just shut up.
So that leads me to ask, did these guys potentially know their own fate? Like they literally built metal crosses for themselves to be these scarecrows, or what?
Here's how I say it. This will talk about story if I talk about it now. Fuck.
True. No, we'll talk about it later.
We'll talk about it later.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
Okay. Favorite scene and shot, Brody?
No. I mean, fuck, man. I love this film obviously so much. I think the scene where Bert comes back to life, as a lifeless corpse, and, you know, he displays his supernatural strength and, you know, he's filled with straw and money. That whole entire scene is fucking brilliant, brutal stuff. And, you know, every body horror fan's wet dream, but it's the creativity that's behind that scene that really drives it home for me. You know, especially after they dismember the body into pieces. Curry slowly slices the corpse open even more, just to dry out the money covered in blood. You know, the sound design for that scene, fucking outstanding. Made me cringe, I will admit. You know, but it just leaves us with a variety of questions, you know. But what I like about it the most, it really leaves it up to us to conjure our own thoughts about the supernatural force that surrounds this place. It's fucking brutal, fantastic scene. Yeah, I mean, and it's the first real bit of action that we get into the entire film. I think it's like 40 minutes in, and that's when shit just turns south real quick. So, yeah.
So my favorite scene is the ending scene. Shot, I guess, is when you see everything turn off. It kind of tells you that the story's over, and they use those elements. And I think that's kind of cool, because whenever I wrote my own story with Brody, we also ended it in a very similar fashion, where we do exterior shots of our entire setting and then zoom out in that way and to show everything's gone now. I think using that as an element in the story and in filmmaking is super cool, and I love how they use it here. Scene I mentioned earlier, wherever Ted Vernon does the whole thing in the back of the plane to save the day, just super cool action film thing. Yeah, I dig it. Nick?
I am super. I'm gonna have to go with Curry's breakdown after he's left behind, or he stays behind. He forces everyone else out. I am gonna have to go with that, probably from start to finish. From from Jack returning to chasing him into the back, to Bert's head in the fridge talking to him, to just all of it crescendoing to him going into the little black magic room, and then just absolutely panicking, the body grabbing his leg,
Yes.
and causing him to panic and empty his whole magazine into it, and then turn around, get, Cenobite Jack is out there, to opening the door and then just into his death. It's not my favorite death. It is my favorite scene, but it just includes his death. But yeah, I mean, as for shot though, I am gonna have to go with, I can't remember his name right now, but the father, the pilot, the shot of Kelly discovering his body and the pan up of you
Super
get
cool.
his feet to, you can now see where the gash ends from when he's been split open. Then it goes up to the reveal and you see the barbed wire all wrapped around his wrists and going across, and one of his eyes is missing and everything. It's just so brutal. To just, then Corbin pulling it. That shot is just so good. I like TJ said, it's very Hellraiser.
I love his little scream he does in the plane. He's like, ah!
Yeah.
And then he like stabs Ted Vern. Ah! Right.
It's like a crow.
So good.
Speaking of things like that, effect and death, Brody.
Oh, all right. Fuck yeah. All right. So I'd have to go with the death of Jack.
Okay.
Now, like we were saying before, like the Scarecrow slicing off his hand to use it as their own, followed up by a Hessian bag over the head with a nice little surprise of a Rambo knife through the fucking face is the definition of brutality, I find. And it's great stuff. The whole effect of Jack's new face reveal is to me an iconic piece of horror history, It's the shock value that deserves a lot more attention in the horror community, I find. It's haunting stuff. I mean, the fun fact about that whole cutting off Jack's arm scene, now this is what I'll tie into the photo. If you look at the photo carefully, out of the three guys, out of the Fowlers, one of them's actually missing a hand. So the reason for him to cut off Jack's hand and sew it to his own to use, I think that's a clever little fucking
You also
thing to
see
throw
that
in
knife in the cabin earlier in the movie.
It's the one stuck in the stump in the
Yep.
black magic room.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, there's all these clever little tie-ins that you've just really got to pay attention to. I think it's fantastic. And like being a supernatural film, it doesn't really have to explain every little detail, but it's there, and there's just a sinister force fucking with these group of people. And I think, the reveal of Jack, like Nick was saying before, is fucking fantastic. Yeah, that whole scene.
I was gonna say, I have to agree. Jax is probably my favorite as well. Just the shock value of it. The knife through because it had to have hit right in between his eyes, was it where it looked like the knife came down at. So just the effect of it and the squish, and like how Norman said earlier that he pumped all the extra blood out and they went, yes. And he was like, well, that's not okay. Well, we'll keep it. We'll do that instead. I like to see this kind of internal take on it. Because another bit of detail, like you said, because I actually didn't notice in the Fowler picture that one of them was missing the hand. I did know that the Scarecrow was missing one because Curry goes off about it whenever he runs back in screaming that Jack's dead. I did not notice that, but I did notice another bit of the detail is when they stab in, and it just like crushes in like the top of his head, as you can kind of see with the bag. That's the part that's covered up by the night vision goggles whenever he reanimates and he comes back. So you've got like the pulled flesh showing all of his teeth and everything, but like the caved in area, they've like replaced it with the night vision goggles, and it's almost like cyberpunky body horror from that, which I just thought was a really cool part. I am gonna have to give an honorable mention to Roxanne's death though, because the hand pull from the pitchfork physically made me recoil in my chair a bit.
Hey,
And the snake eyes.
and that's my favorite death.
Oh, there you go.
only because I love pitchfork deaths, and I love the visual of the blood dripping on the dice while she's getting killed.
Yeah.
It's just so fucking rad.
That's
Yeah.
almost a little Jello. Almost
A little bit. A little bit. I was like, oh, symbolism. I love it.
Yeah. I was like, oh, that's art house. Ooh, I
Yes.
know someone who's gonna like that bit.
It was rad. So, thoughts on story? I'll tell you how I interpreted the story, and then you guys can look.
Yep.
So, I think that they went to rob that treasury or whatever the fuck it was.
It was Camp Pendleton. It's
Camp
a Marine
Pendleton.
Corps camp.
Oh, Marine Corps camp. Well,
One of my buddies was stationed there.
I think that while they were doing that, they died pretty early on. All of them did. And
I agree.
then this is them in hell.
100% agree.
This is their journey into hell. And then them becoming we kept referencing Hellraiser and Cenobites. This is kind of like that girl's Kirsty in this situation. You know what I mean? Where she's like, these terrible things are happening to these other people, and she's just kind of along for the ride and surviving. You can look at it this way, but like I think that this is these people's journey into hell, and that this is how they're getting their punishment, is having to deal with this crazy supernatural family. So yeah, I don't think that they ever made it out, and that this whole thing is them getting their comeuppance from their bad deeds.
Or do you think, that's an awesome theory, or do you think that fate was going to be like, okay, I'm going to let you rob this? Because when Curry talks about it, he's like, how come we kept firing, they kept falling, and they kept firing,
That's what makes me think that they died so early on. Like as soon as that thing happened, like they all just died early on, because then none of that makes sense to them. Like everything, like you mentioned, like you just mentioned, we kept firing and then they kept falling. It would just all seem too easy. Well, if they all fucking died immediately, it all would have seemed easy.
Yeah. Or was fate leading them into a fucking
I thought about that,
them into,
but a lot of the stuff that happens once they're there has no logic. So that's what makes me feel like. So like that's why I was like, so maybe this is hell.
I can kind of see like an in between a little bit between like what Brody's saying and what you're saying as well. Is it could be they're not quite into hell. The Fowlers are almost like demons bringing them in. Demonic demon.
Like I said, it's like they're the Cenobites and this is their journey. And like I said, that girl's just kind of along the ride because she was kidnapped.
I mean, then it kind of makes me wonder why they put in the radio call like
at the end.
At the start,
because she survives it all. You know what I mean? Like she goes through hell and gets out on the other side. Because at the radio call, they say they find everyone dead except her. No trace of anyone else. There's just blood, and then there's her and the dog. Yeah.
So it's like it's either a transcendent into hell, or it actually did happen. So it sets up for a sequel. Because when you think about it, Curry, Roxy, and Jack become the new 3 Scarecrows at that fucking place.
Or in addition,
they take over the field. Well, yeah. So that sets up for a sequel. In that sense,
you just have to keep putting people in that scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. They become the new the Fowler families. They
or all those Scarecrows you see are other folks.
They're
yeah,
because there's more than just the 3 Scarecrows. You know what I mean?
Well, that's right, and I suppose because you can hear some of them mimicking, like, why don't you say something, Bertie motherfucker, and all that. Oh fuck, man, it's like so many ways you can.
What if that is like a graveyard for lost souls? So like people who went over, and like this is just where all the bad souls collect. Just a way to look at it as well. You know, like in Beetlejuice, where they have all these different rooms for like the different souls. Like, what if this is like one of those rooms?
Yeah, well, because Carrie actually goes like they're meant to warn off evil spirits, but they end up becoming evil spirits. So it's like, well, fuck. So Curry's like actually saying all this shit that could actually lead into like.
Well, I think that they realize it.
Right.
They realize it whenever things stop making sense and logic stops working. Because whenever that dude's walking around and he's already been dead, they're like, okay, this fucking doesn't make sense. And then that's when they start questioning reality, which is why I thought the whole hell route. Nick?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm going to have to agree. I just had a little bit of a rev during this. I didn't realize actually that I had seen Route 666 before, because while we were talking about this and you said because it was setting up for the sequel of there are these new Scarecrows to be brought back, I went, I was thinking in my head, I went, I actually saw a movie when I was a kid, I remember on TV.
Route 66 is just like this.
Of a chain gang where they came back as zombies. Yep. And I was like, and so I went and I looked at it and I went, Route 6, I was like, wait a fuck. But like that's funny. I just had that kind of that was weird. I didn't realize I'd seen the movie before.
And the movie's just really fucking hokey.
Yeah, I do remember that just from as a kid. I just remember someone getting pulled into a freaking manhole cover by a zombie chain gang member and was just like, wait a minute, I've seen a movie like this before. I just typed it up as we were talking. I'm like, never mind, I've seen this movie.
Lou Diamond Phillips.
And Lori Petty. And that's right.
Yes.
Impact and takeaway. So clearly in the movie Cabin in the Woods, this clearly influenced the redneck family people, and that even as far as Brody goes, these the rooms in this house seem seem like they're different and all tell a story. Oh, kind of like the Cabin in the Woods house?
There you go.
Yep. And I even made the allusion to Jack being like Marty, the comic relief being technically the smartest one, though Cabin in the Woods played that even up for further laughs because it was the weed that he was smoking counteracted all their dumb horror cliche chemicals they were pumping in.
And
so
if
he
you
was the
think
only one that
about
could
it,
remain smart.
what we just got done talking about, like the whole scenario of if this is a reoccurring journey to hell for people,
Right.
Like that's another thing, like this a scenario that people are forced into over and over again. So that's another thing that's kind of like an influence there, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, plus, you know, like you said earlier as well, the of Scarecrow-related horror movies that came after this.
So the only other thing that I can think of is Dark Knight, right, Brody? That precedes.
Yeah, Dark Knight of the Scarecrow.
But that's not necessarily anything along the lines of this. This is kind of slashery. Dark Knight's kind of more. How would you describe that, Brody? Not exactly slashery, more ghost.
Nah, it's a supernatural film.
Yeah.
When you get that twist at the end, but it's more of a revenge tale.
Yeah.
I'd say Jeff Burr's Night of the Scarecrow is a little bit more along the lines of this slasher-esque.
Yes.
Because he can't, like, it's like a warlock that comes back from the dead, and just absolutely fucking guts people like left, right, and center. So, you know, it's kind of more along the lines of that slasher film. I don't know, it's a bit of both. Because this is a supernatural film as well, but zombie scarecrows. Yeah. So it meets in the middle. I find. I will just say that the one thing that I really did take away from this film, and I think we said before about it in the notes, is that it's like this clever little storytelling of our criminals. How it's that dynamic of using a heist crew of stealing money, a bit like Crows. It's a fantastic representation of crows in general, stealing, like just being cunning creatures, all in black, just stealing things to survive, you know. And it just represents them so fucking well. I think it's fantastic, especially when you've got a no budget script, pretty much.
You like the symbolism?
I do. I like the overall tone and symbolism of the film.
Speaking of that, you remind me of the tone. The music, sometimes it sounds like it references old-timey horror, like not this era, but more like early 60s, maybe even early Hammer films, like early 70s stuff. Like, I feel like it references that with its sound tonally. How do you guys feel about that?
Absolutely. You got the old violin and the crows gawking, and
also a gothic feel to it at times because of that. Yeah. The crows and stuff. Almost Edgar Allan Poe-ish.
Very Hammer Dracula.
There you go. That's a good
Very Hammer Dracula. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Fucking
I just want a prequel with the Fowler family dealing with the black arts and magic and all that shit. How they came to be these zombified scarecrows and killing other trespassers on their land. I think that would be a fucking fantastic, fun time.
Do a fan film.
I was about to say, it would work as a short film.
We get a sequel with Jack, Curry, and Roxy as these new scarecrows. Mr. Cabrera, if you wanted to come back for it.
Just so you could do the Jack Scarecrow again.
Just putting it out there, mate. Just putting it out there. Yeah, absolutely. I would literally make Jack the lead scarecrow. I really want someone to make that bus for me. Yeah, I need it. I need it bad.
It's so good.
You could literally just put a Texas Chainsaw Massacre scenario in this setting. So it'd be like people get into a car accident, right? But they don't know that they get into a car accident, and then they drive into this part, and then at the end they find out that they were in a car accident, and it's just like,
and they die.
Yeah.
There is a movie. There is a movie called Husk that came out in 2000s. Can't remember when. But it's basically a quintessential like sequel to this. Well, it's a sequel remake-ish type to this film.
I may have seen it. I think I know what you're talking about because that sounds so familiar. I'm pretty sure I've seen Husk.
Yeah, they get into a car crash. A scarecrow jumps out in front of them. They walk through a cornfield. They find this abandoned house.
It's from the After Dark originals.
That's the one.
It's considered a remake of Scarecrows.
Yes. Okay. When did Jacob's Ladder come out? Because the whole plot of Jacob's Ladder was all
Jesus Christ, Brody. It literally is the exact plot I just described.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was like, holy fuck. I honestly think we can make it better.
Yeah. You know what? Fuck the car thing. Let's do boats.
Boats.
Boats and
Can we do motorcycles retrofitted to be boats?
Okay, boys, let's rate this son of a bitch. Mutilated corpses stuffed with money and straw out of 5. Brody Kane, take it away.
4.2.
Slick Nick?
3.7.
I'm going to give it a 3.5, and that is an LCE score of 3.8 out of 5 for 1988's Scarecrows from William Wesley. Next episode is the final for season 3. Thank you for joining us on this exciting fucking season of films. The next episode is Standard Cop from 1994, so we're going to end this season the same way we started it, with people with telekinetic powers that can make your head explode. But now, this guy's a cop. So, well, I'm excited to review this movie. We'll be doing the Vinegar Syndrome release, 4K release that we all have the pleasure of owning, thanks to my heavy-handed influence. But yes,
been waiting to watch it.
We are excited to talk about that film, and maybe we'll have people involved. Who knows? We will see. Shout out again to Norman for introing and outroing the show. Much appreciated, bro. But I think that is all for this episode. Go check out our bonus episode of our Black Friday special, available on ProjectLouder.net. This is the Pod Boss, TJ Bowser, signing off.
This is the doppelganger Kanga Banger all the way from down under saying, I'll catch you motherfuckers next week.
Slick Nick saying good to be back this week, y'all. See y'all next week to see this one out.
The finale.
And thanks for listening to Lights, Camera, Exploitation. Trespassers will be violated.